This is Nebraska Farmcast, a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I'm Ryan Evans. Drought conditions across the U.S. continue to impact livestock producers. Cow-calf operators with calves are deciding whether to sell or retain after weaning, and the cost to add more weight, along with the eventual final sale price, are important factors to consider, of course. UNL livestock economist Elliott has a new article looking at different scenarios for adding weight and the impact that they may have on sale prices, and he joins me now for more. Hi, Elliott.
Hi, Ryan.
So how have ongoing drought conditions impacted cattle sales as we're recording this here in November?
Yeah, so we've seen really two impacts. First has been in the cull cow market, where we're up a significant amount, and if we continue on even just a pace that we experienced last year, in the last quarter, we're going to really be experiencing probably one of the one-time largest decreases in total cow herd production in the last 50 years. So it's very large. Some of that's been driven by the drought. Some of it's been driven by higher slaughter cow prices. So I think both of those have been having the impact. On the feeder cattle side, what we've seen is that a lot of these cattle are being pulled up a little bit earlier, being placed in feed yards at lighter weights, and we've even seen that here in Nebraska. Normally we like to place around 900 pounds, but we've even seen like the 700 to 800 pound range placements go up pretty substantially. And I think that's just an indicator of high feed prices, kind of the inability to secure additional feed resources, and so we're just choosing to place them into feed yards. So that's the first thing. And then we've also seen a much larger number of total cattle receipts year to date than we have seen in the past, and that's also indicating that not only are we placing more animals, but also cow-calf producers are really pushing cattle off their ranch earlier. And so that's kind of why we kind of wanted people who are considering either just selling their calves right off the cow, or if we're thinking about maybe retaining them and buying some extra feed, what does that decision making look like?
Yeah, and what are some common backgrounding systems that are used here in Nebraska by producers? How do they compare to each other?
Yeah, the Department of Animal Science, I think, has done a good job at trying to quantify what some of these are. And really it depends on how aggressively we're going to push them through the winter and how aggressively we're going to push them potentially through the following summer. So these would be like just wintering or backgrounding all the way with the sell date potentially in March or April, or retaining them through the summer and selling them in July, August. And so since we're at this point in the decision making, all we thought about is what happens if we choose to push cattle really aggressively in the winter time. That would be at a almost 2 pounds of gain, feeding some distillers, feeding pretty high energy content, or do we try to feed them a little bit lower, kind of like 1 pound to gain per day? And so this would be kind of like that slow growth through the winter time. And really, anytime we're making that type of decision, we always want to look at what the market's willing to pay us to put on that additional weight. And an important thing about the market is this concept of a price weight slide, which means a producer is not always paid the same dollar per pound of gain when the animal is lighter as when the animal is heavier. And we're only paid for the additional weight we choose to put on post-weaning. And so if we choose to retain an animal and put on weight, in essence, we're effectively buying the animal from ourselves, and we only get paid for the additional pounds post-weaning because we've chosen to forego income. And so that's kind of what the article was about, is how do we then evaluate that, and what is the market currently willing to pay us to put on that weight?
And how do price risk management tools fit into this?
Yeah, so once we calculate this, what we call the value of gain, that gives us an idea of how much the market's willing to pay us to put on additional pound. We compare that to what it costs us when we add up all of our costs, our rental fees, labor, and we get a cost of gain. really that difference between the value of gain and the cost of gain is profit per pound that we can expect to receive. But since we're doing this value calculation today, and that value calculation is based on the price of corn, the feeder cattle market, expected and ultimately expected basis when we choose to sell, that price can change or that value can change. So just because the market told me to put it on today doesn't mean I'm always going to get that when I sell. So that's why we talk about price risk management tools, because although we're seeing that profit today, if we feel like that is a good profit margin, then we should choose to try to potentially protect some of that risk and mitigate that, and putting in some price risk management tools. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can be really basic, such as just like putting a floor, using either CME put options or the livestock risk protection, but making sure we have that so we can lock in essentially that profit margin.
And then what would you say is important for cow-calf producers to think about as they weigh decisions for their calves in the coming months?
Yeah, so anytime we make a decision, I think we always want to be intentional about this decision and think of it as a business decision, saying, are we going to make money doing this? And that's why it's always important to go back to the numbers. Take the time to calculate this. There are some really effective tools. Beefbasis.com has an effective backgrounding or stocking calculator. All you have to do is just stick in where you're going to sell it, the weights, what you think the average daily gain is going to be, and it can calculate this value of gain for you. So the tools are out there. You don't need to be doing this by hand. And then just kind of comparing that and weighing the costs. So I think just making that informed decision rather than just I have extra feed or I don't like the prices now, so I'm just going to retain, but really making a conscious decision that's sounded in good evidence.
And your new article is a great resource for this, so we encourage listeners to go to our website at cap.unl.edu or follow the link in the description for the podcast wherever you're listening to it to find that article and learn more about what we've been discussing here on this episode of Nebraska Farmcast. It's from Elliott Dennis, Assistant Professor, Livestock Marketing Economist here with the Center for Ag Profitability in the Department of Agricultural Economics at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Elliott, once again, thank you very much.
Thanks again, Ryan.
Nebraska Farmcast is a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. For the latest research-based information and education resources to manage your farm or ranch operation, visit our website at cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu.